Hey, what's up guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Here in today's video I want to talk about the CAGED system and how it applies to Sultans of Swing. So I've done 2 lessons on CAGED that I'm going to link you to below. One of them is a 10-minute CAGED video that's kind of just, I tried to cram as much information as I can in a 10-minute video, all the important details. A link to that will be below. I also did a really in-depth lesson on the CAGED system, which is about 45 minutes long. That covers all aspects of the CAGED system. I will also post a link to that below. This video here, I just want to show you some applications of it and how it applies to Sultans of Swing. Alright, so this first fill is played over an A major chord. So this whole song is in the key of D minor, and A major is technically an out-of-key chord. But when you're in a minor key, very often they will make the chord that is a fifth in relation to the 1 chord. In this case, since we're in the key of D minor, we're just going to say that the D minor chord is the 1 chord. So your fifth in relation to D would be A. So in a minor key context, you will often see, the 5 chord made major. That's why the A major chord is used, although it's technically out of key. So all of these fills, even though they're heavily focusing on the chords and the chord tones and the chord shapes and all that stuff, any surrounding notes that occur around these chord shapes are going to typically be notes from the D minor scale. All right, so this first fill goes like this. So he's just pretty much focusing heavily on the chord tones of the A major chord, but throwing in some surrounding notes, and then those surrounding notes are going to be notes from the D minor scale. So let's first just look at all the notes of the A major chord. You have A, C sharp, and E. Those are the notes that make up the A major chord. So this starts out up here. You could either say this is the A major chord in the C shape, or you could say this is an A major chord in the D shape. So he starts off by playing around this area. So he's throwing in an extra note here. That's going to be a note that's from the D minor scale. And then he slides down to here. And this is pretty much based off the E shape of the A major chord. So alright, so again, there's that one extra note thrown in there, but that is a note from the D minor scale. Again, it's the note D, so that's just where these extra notes are coming from. But this is very heavily based on this chord shape, and then this chord shape. And then the lick actually ends down here on the 4th fret, which you could technically say is the A major chord in the G shape. Alright, so this is all just chord tone stuff. But throwing in a couple extra notes, which come from your D minor scale, you have. So the rhythm section that's happening over this next fill is F major to C major to B flat major. All of those chords are in the key of D minor, as you can see on your circle of fifths within the grouping of 6. So the rhythm section is doing this. So right when it's going from that C major chord to that B flat major chord, he's just chord tone targeting. So he's going. So he's just playing the notes that are on the D string and the G string, but those are notes that are coming right from the C major chord shape. You could call this the C major chord in the E shape. If you don't want to be a nerd about it, you could just say it's a basic bar chord rooted on the low E string. It's a C major bar chord. Whatever you want to say. I like to be a nerd about stuff, so I'm going to call this the E shape. So this is a C major chord in the E shape, but I'm just playing the D and G strings. And then, you can kind of throw in your surrounding notes. Alright, so it's still based off this chord shape, just throwing in surrounding notes from the D minor scale. And then moving down to this B flat chord shape. Again in the E shape, but just playing the D and G strings. So this next fill takes place over the pre-chorus. So that's the part where it's like. So that first fill right there, it's just a basic, this is a D minor chord shape like this. Now, if you want to refer to this in terms of CAGED, you could say that this is coming from the A shape. So the CAGED system is all about major chords, and then if you need to turn them into minor chords, you just make a slight manipulation to it by lowering the third. So you could say this is a D major chord in the A shape, recognizing where the root third and fifth are within the shape, seeing that this is the third. And then if you lower that by 1/2 step, that makes it into a D minor chord. All right, so that's the nerd way of looking at it, and I'm a nerd, so that's how I look at it. Or you can just say, all right, this is a D minor chord in a bar chord form rooted on the A string. So just a basic bar chord rooted on the A string. So that's all this fill is coming from. That's where those notes are coming from. And then this part, that's just coming from the B flat major chord in the A shape, C major chord in the A shape. But he's just playing, I think he's just playing the G and the B string. I guess you could get the D string in there if you want. I just kind of use the D string for rhythm. So I'm kind of muting the D string, and I'm just playing the B and the G string notes of these chords, just kind of, using muted playing of the D string as, kind of my rhythm. So I don't know if that's exactly what he's playing, but I know that he's playing on those chord shapes. He's playing on the B flat chord shape and the C chord shape because those are the chords that are happening in the rhythm, and that's why, that's happening. And as I said, this fill, that's all coming right from this chord shape. Throwing in the surrounding notes, any notes that are not part of the D minor triad are part of the D minor scale. So those are the surrounding notes. So that's fill number 3. All right, so this next fill again takes place over an A major chord. We're back in the verse again. So the rhythm section is, again, it's a D minor chord to a C major to a B flat to an A major. Of course, you could play an A dominant 7 if you wanted to play that A chord in its 7th form. Either one is fine. When we're doing this chord tone targeting stuff, you're primarily focusing on the triads. You can consider the 7th, if you're looking at these chords and they're 4-note versions, they're 7-note versions. You can consider the 7th to be a chord tone as well if you want, but it's the triad tones are just the strongest chord tones. So triad tones are always going to be the strongest tones to land on over any given chord. All right, so we're looking at this A major chord, and it's primarily based off of the C shape of the A major chord. So here's your A major chord in the C shape. You have an A, C sharp, E, A, C sharp. And then any notes that are used surrounding this fill, surrounding this chord shape, are going to be notes that are coming from the D minor scale. So this fill goes all based right off that A major chord in the C shape. And then he does a bend right here on the 12th fret of the G string. So he's bending that up one whole step. Why is he bending that up one whole step? Because he's trying to get to this note right here. All right, so he's trying to get to that note because the next chord after this part, as we already looked at, is an F major chord. That note right there is a chord tone of this F major chord here in the E shape. So he's targeting that note right there on the 14th fret of the G string. That's the note A. That's a chord tone of the F major chord. So F major chord in the E shape. We could just call it a basic bar chord rooted on the 6th string of the F major chord, whatever you want to say, but that's where that bend comes from, and that's why that bend sounds so nice right there. All right, so that is fill number 4. All right, again, fill number 5 is played over that part where it's F major chord to a C major chord to a B flat major chord. To a B flat major. So again, this fill takes place over the C major and B flat major. So it's... So right here, it's coming from the C major chord. just notes of the C major chord, looking at the full chord shape, that's all it is. And then coming down to this B flat major chord, using the same shape, just shifted down 2 frets, it's a B flat major chord. Very, very tasty fill right there. All right, so fill number 6 here is based off this D minor chord shape again, like this. So as I said, when Mark Knopfler is playing on these chord shapes and he's using surrounding notes, those surrounding notes are coming from the D minor scale, because that's what key we're in. We're in the key of D minor. So the best sounding notes on a per chord basis are going to be your chord tones, and that's why we're looking at these chord shapes. But the surrounding notes are going to come from the D minor scale, but they don't always have to. You can still play other notes too. You can play out of key notes, and it's going to be very apparent when these out of key notes are used. So he doesn't use too many out of key notes in the song. It's mostly just chord shapes and then surrounding notes from the D minor scale. But in this particular lick right here, he goes like this. So that's really just a chromatic walk down. So if you look at what he's doing in a different way, you can see that he's kind of coming from this note here, coming down to this note here. That note is the note D. You could say this is coming from this D minor chord shape here. And he's just walking down chromatically. But instead, he's just doing it all in one spot. So very, very tasty fill. And then this last one here, this is not necessarily a fill, this is just the chorus of the song, so it's coming from this shape, then coming from this shape, then coming from this shape, but just it's coming from those basic bar chord shapes, and then it's coming up to an F chord, again F chord in the A shape, and then a C major chord like this in the E shape. So if you want to play these 3 strings, if you want to play D, G, and B strings, or if you just want to play the just the G and B, either way sounds good to me. So that was just the G and the B string, playing the D, G, and the B string. So as you can hear, it sounds a little bit more full when you include the D string here. But you got to keep in mind that when you're playing this with a full band, when there's a rhythm section, there's a bass part, there's a rhythm guitar part, the whole band is filling out all this stuff, you're not really going to be able to tell the difference if that D string is used or not. So this versus this is not really going to be that much of a difference. So it's really just up to you what you want to do. The important thing is to just see these shapes. Just understand that this is coming from a D minor chord in this shape, from C major chord in this shape, B flat major chord in this shape, and then an F major chord in this shape, and then a C major chord in this shape. So seeing these shapes is the big thing. And then recognizing, the intervals within the shapes. He's throwing in a lot of thirds here too. So within this D minor chord, you have your root, fifth, root, third. So you definitely want to get that third in there because that's what differentiates a minor chord from a major chord. And then same thing on the, the C chord and the B flat chord. That's root and third. That's root and third. So getting that third in there is pretty important. Same thing with this F major chord. You want to get that root and third in there as well. And then on the C major chord, so make sure you get that third in there. So that's why if you eliminate the D string and you just play 2 strings at a time, you're still getting the third in there, therefore it's going to still sound right. So that's the importance of not only seeing these shapes, but looking at these shapes in terms of intervals. And again, I talk about all that stuff in my CAGED lessons. This lesson is not a lesson on the CAGED system. This is just application of the CAGED system. So, that's going to do it for this lesson. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.